Michael Jackson on a Thursday. The song should be just trade it, right? Not just beat it. Everyone's just like, oh, we bullish, we bearish, we bullish, we bearish. You know what? Just friggin' trade it. Hold on, let me just get everything up here. Trade it. Just trade it. Little Michael Jackson on a Thursday morning. Anyway, good morning, my dogs. It's 6:33. It's October 16th. I hope everyone's feeling well. My name is Scott Redler. I am the Chief Strategic Officer at T3Live.com, also the founder of T3 Live, and I'm also the founder of Red Dog Mindset, another type of product that I created to keep your mind right. I've seen traders come and go with 30 years, and they just can't stay the course. They don't know how to have a focus and how to have a routine and how to have a process and how to, make their life not get too high, too low, and just get prepared. Get prepared. Everybody wants to be right. Don't be right. Make money. Everybody wants to be the smartest man in the room. Not me. I just try and map out levels. I try and work hard. I try and put things out there. Try and figure out the narratives of the day, what's happening, and make more good decisions than bad decisions. Anyway, let me say hello to some of my dogs. What up, Jim Nelson? Good morning to you. Good morning, Blair. Always consistent. Yes, TSM up guidance or was strong, so the semis are up. What up, Chad? We got Thomas in the house. We got Tim. We got Tappan. What up, Tappan? I haven't seen you all. What up, Jay Rice? Nothing not to like in TSM, Jay says. All right, that's true. Anyway, we've had a lot of volatility. The ranges have been loose and wide since last Friday. Last Friday, the rhetoric was dialed up, and you had a big down day to shake up some sentiment, gave you every reason to get out of a lot of things. And this week, you had some spots to kind of rebuild. Some names proved you could still hold them. Some things you were able to buy lower if you sold higher. If you sold the 8 day or the 21 day, you're able to buy the 50 day. Then you had your gap up that everyone was so mad about. Don't get mad, just the reality of the situation. And then, you had the chance to buy in the hole, which was what? This was, I think, Tuesday. And then yesterday, was very loose and wide, where kind of pushed up through 667. If you shorted too early, I was selling some premium, you definitely were feeling it. And then on the pullback mid-afternoon, you're able to cover some hedges. And then if you bought too early, you didn't make it all the way down to support. That's why you really have to have your levels. If you start doing something in no man's land, it's horrible. You won't stay the course. You won't be able to catch a trade. The worst thing is starting too early and then being right 10 minutes later or 5 minutes later, and you can't handle it because they had too much size and did it in the wrong spot. But anyway, with that being said, so everyone's talking about TSM. Let's put that up. All right, TSM's been a great stock. TSM has been, above the 8 day, above the 21 day, just moving along, and had a nice setup going into this. So if you're long TSM, congratulations. It's good to see, a semi making a higher high, right? Following the rules. Remember this breakout at 247. I never take my lines off. So when I put up the charts again, sometimes you'll see I haven't touched something or drew lines in 3 months because I haven't traded it since then. But anyway, so what do I think is important about today? I think for risk appetite, does this get above 307 and hold it? Does it get above 307 and hold it? Or does it open up and fade? Is it priced in? Because lately, a lot of things are opening up and fading. So you kind of want to see if that's the case for TSM. It's at 309. Was a nice setup, was kind of priced for perfection. A lot of good things. They said a lot of good things. Let's go. Thank you, Mr. Redler. So anyway, TSM is pretty good. What's different? Nvidia's been a little bit different. I've told you ever since this little breakout failure, like things change. I was talking about that today in my 20 at 520. I do a sauna workout with a few hundred people. At at early morning where we get our mind right. We listen to playlists. We do a little mobility, a little stretching, a little supersets. And anyway, I was saying how last week, this was a focus here. Remember when I said if it breaks above 184.50, you could see 190 plus, and we made a lot of money at 3 different sets of options. Well, guess what? I haven't really touched it this week. I haven't touched it. I have my eyes on it, but I haven't traded it. That's what you have to do as a trader. You have to adjust, know when there's a setup and know when it's not. And then even yesterday, if you remember, it kind of got a little weak, or 2 days ago. And then, yesterday everyone's like, oh, what do we do here? I'm like, well, watch 185. Does it get rejected there or not? And basically got rejected and went red. So this has not been a hyper focus. And then this morning, it's only up 250. It's not even back to where it was. So this is not where the money is. There's been money in Nvidia a lot. And if you're an investor, you're making a lot of money, but every now and then the money switches. So where did the money go yesterday? Money's been in a lot of different places. So first of all, everyone's like, Redler, great call on the HIMS. Well, HIMS is a name that has been very tricky. I started buying options here thinking it was going to break out, and it came all the way in. And then on this little red dog reversal, instead of just getting away from it, saying, hey, I hate this stock, it doesn't go when I want it to go, I bought more options. And then yesterday finally triggered through 60, went to 65. A lot of guys made a lot of money here. Everyone's been waiting for it. This is a really big macro pattern. You would think you could buy HIMS down 69 cents today, right? This was a massive move. Maybe it was a little bit too much. Maybe, up $8 is not what it should have been, but there was a big short interest. And anyway, I would like to see this hold 61-ish and go green, and the little pack and fill, and at some point, take out this 73. But the beauty of trading is that, this could happen every which way. This name, I never really trade this name, but it was on the radar, was holding in well, went with it. It also did it as a power play for, the power plays. And anyway, some guys took it all off and made 300-400% on their money yesterday. I had a great option trade. I had the options on, and then it came in, pulled in, I put the stock on, and I'm have a little less options, and we'll see what goes on here. But if you didn't have your mind right and you didn't execute, and you weren't on your toes, you didn't make the money there. There was great money there yesterday. This kind of reminds me a little bit of TEM. TEM gave us a really good trade, and then kind of just started to act a little weaker. Is also in the last week the market's been weaker, but it did hold 88. I do have some on. There was a nice trade here. If you remember, we traded it through 88, through 98, went to 104, and then it just pulled in. So we'll see. I think this name has to come out with some kind of news, but we'll see. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. All I know is that, it does look, fine. It's loose and wide, and I would think that it gets above that 104, at some point. So I'm still in there. We've had a good trade there. It's been a little frustrating, but I wouldn't lose sight of it. Anyway, this looks it looks fine. Looks fine. I remember when MBIS, when everybody was mad at me with MBIS in here. If you remember, before the big news and before the big breakout, I was playing this a lot, and it was hard. This is like one of those names where you need, a big institution to be a buyer and this and that. In here, everybody was, getting a little, whatever it's called, getting a little antsy, and now, anyway, it needs probably a little bit of time. But in here, there was a really nice trade. I remember when it didn't work there, everyone lost sight of it, and then it had to rebuild, and then boom, look at that, move to 141. So anyway, I think HIMS, you could probably buy a dip today for it to go green. I don't know if it's going to take out 65, but let it hold in here, take that out, and that's going to be, I would think you get some more follow through. At some point, I think TEM will be fine. Again, like I said before, maybe it builds and goes. The bios have been great. Solar hasn't been great. CRM's up a lot. I messed this trade up a little bit, but it is what it is. I was buying CRM calls for this event. They came out with some news with whatever AI, and it actually acted poorly, and then they upgraded their guidance, so it's up. So it's funny how the market, makes you feel a little bit bad about yourself sometimes, where you're like, why'd I get out of that? The options were not a whole hell of a lot, and and then all of a sudden you walk in and it's up a lot. So anyway, who cares? It is what it is. Holy shit, it's up 14. Okay, now I'm a little pissed. Ugh, I had the options on, damn it. And I gave it to some people that had it on. That sometimes when, whatever, can't think about it. So anyway, whatever that is, it is. Wow. Anyway, it has room to 264. That stock's been a laggard. Anyway, yes, BBAI did pull in yesterday, but guess what? All it did is hit the 8-day. A lot of people yesterday are like BBI is getting crushed. I'm like, it hit the 8-day. Like, what are you talking about getting crushed? The stock just, let it go a little sideways here, and it probably goes again. Have some perspective. You guys, gotta have a little perspective on stock movement. Not everything's going to be an iron or ASTS. Like, this had a really nice move from 6 through 787 through 866, and it just probably needs a little bit of time to rebuild and then go. So it's probably fine. Anyway, with that being said, some people still in ARM. Okay, ARM's taking its time. Keeps coming out with some good news. I think if you wanted to be in ARM, go out and buy some like 185 calls. Stock's kind of hard to trade on an intraday basis. Looks pretty good though. It's hanging in here. The actual weekly chart of ARM is much better. So I hear you. If you're down on BBAI, would you buy some more to get? So someone's asked me if you're down on BBAI. Well, what's it doing this morning? It's up a penny. If you're really super duper active and you're down, how do you down on this? It hasn't been, was down for one day. Would you buy it for the first time yesterday? What the hell am I doing here? Anyway, BBAI. It's not a focus. What I would do is I would buy more and put your stop right here. Put your stop at 787. That's it. Let it rebuild in here, buy more. If it were to break this 787, that means that the trade changed a little bit. It's got to come out with some news. I wouldn't over focus there. Yes, RXRX was really good. So RXRX, look at that nice little candle. I got really big in this thing on this day right here. And then I said yesterday you could buy more at 630. And now it looks like it's on its way to 7. And then it could be more. That was a big trade, big money trade for a lot of us yesterday. Something different. How about Tesla? Tesla's fair. That's it. Like, all I could say is it's fair. All the mega cap tech is not where it is right now. Just not. Sorry. There are some trades, but it's just not where the action is. Like, I'm long some Tesla. I trim some into strength, and it's hanging here. I think this is what you do. You want to simplify it. If you're active and you trade for a living, you could be in, set your stop right here. This is 416. So be in verse 416. And just don't add on strength. Try not to add on strength. So anyway, this was a great trade here. We made a lot of money, and I got rid of it into the deliveries. Sometimes they sell the news, which they did, and now it's going sideways here. It's fine. It looks better than some of the other mega cap tech or the Mag 7. I will say, like, Google looks even better. Look at that trade. I was saying earlier in the week, you'd be long versus 235 at 239. So Google looks different than everything else in Mag 7 land for now. Yeah, Gary says that he made good money, or Google was solid yesterday, regained it on the dip. Good for you. Yes, Wolf was great. Look at that. If you guys remember, I did something funny. I'm the Red Dog, and I did, Red Dog likes the Wolf, and I sold mine at 15, unfortunately. And I said, which is going to happen first? You look at the weekly. Is Wolf going to get to 16? Or is Pony going to get to, what's it called, 30? And the Wolf won. I think Pony's still okay. The Chinese names are a little out of play. I think you could maybe buy versus. Just needs a little bit of time, probably needs some news. But I do think this could take out this 24.92 at some point if you want. Go out 1 month and buy the $25 calls. And I probably think within a month, it takes that out. But remember, I was like, it's the Wolf versus the Pony, and the Wolf friggin' crushed the Pony, which is fine. All the names pulled in. Someone said, Red Dog, did you see that that ARK bought a lot of Baidu? Okay. If you remember when I was buying Baidu, we were buying it down here. And then, this is when we were done with it. So if you want to say, hey, look at the dip in Baidu, which it did dip a lot. and you think the Chinese names are going to get better again, this just pulled in a hell of a lot. This is 119. I haven't traded Baidu in literally, I don't know, in 3 weeks. I don't even remember where we were done with it. I was buying it here. I might have been done with it into this spot. I don't remember exactly. But anyway, if you think that the Chinese names are going to get better, you could probably go out a month or so and buy some Baidu. Okay, better on a pull. And I wouldn't buy the shares just because it's a Chinese name. The Chinese names are a little bit crazy at times, but you could probably go out and buy some options because it's pulled in a decent amount. And usually it's better to buy options into a pullback. And there's a big void there. You could do that with BABA also. BABA pulled in from 192 to 157. It's got some room if you want to. I don't know if I don't really have any FOMO there for that, to be honest. But we'll see. Can you look at self? All right, CELH looks pretty good. I was trading this earlier in the year, right around here, right around when it took out 38. Some guys are in versus gap. It's went a long way. I would say you could be long versus here, and at some point it takes out this bull flag to the upside. Looks pretty good. I could see why. VST, I like this a lot. I'm in options. I might buy some stock. Look at it going sideways. This is a Vista Corp. I gotta say, my guy Todd in the Alpha team really likes it. He calls it Kraken, whatever he calls it. I do think it can go. So I would keep an eye on VST. I'm in some options, and maybe I'll buy some shares. We'll see. Gary says MU is super pretty. Let's see. Yeah, it's got a nice little bull flag. Looks good. Yeah, last time I played this was 130. This looks good. Looks better than other semis. You're right. I would say, hey, put this on your B list or your B plus list if it trades through. What's it doing this morning? TSM is up a bunch, 460, but make sure TSM holds. If TSM goes from up 5 to red, oh, this is already up 6. So if you were buying versus, 189, you're already in and you're not playing it for momentum, because there hasn't been a lot of momentum in this tape, to be honest. Anyway, VIX holding above 8 and 21 keeps, that means be flexible. So some people saying, hey, Red Dog, what do I think as far as the market? What do I think for next week? What do I think? To be honest, it's hard to tell. It's at this point, for the spies to be able to get all the way back to 670-ish. Yes, I know it's a retest. That's a big range. Usually if the sellers are in control, which the sellers haven't been in control all year, they would have rejected price somewhere midway. They wouldn't have let it get through the 50% retracement versus push it all the way up. So I think today will be interesting. Today the spies are up, 235 at 667.50, which is right here. I would think that lately, you have to play these ranges, not, add on strength, et cetera, et cetera. If this is going to be a head and shoulders top, which I'm saying is a big if, it's got to be rejected. It can't get much above 670. They need to reject price. It needs to go from up 2 to red, and then and then at some point it's got to start heading into here, and then this is your neckline, and then this is the 100-day. For me, I did reduce a lot of risk, and I did keep options, which have been working, and I've been just trading, and I'm at the highs of my quarter, the highs of my year. I'm chilling, and I think a lot of my guys are. So congratulations. I also got a little lucky. I got AMD, which is looking really good, actually. I bought AMD in here, and I had that big gap up with a lot of my guys. I didn't know that it was going to have that big news, and it didn't. Look how nice this looks, actually. Some guys are long AMD versus 213 or versus 203, and now it looks like it's going to be getting through this 240. Wow, that's a nice move. Got above this 2-day pivot. What's AMD doing this morning? It's probably up with everything else. Giving you not up that much. Giving you a little bit of follow through. Up $1, 239. This is what, 240. Yeah, so if it gets through this, then it could be a good day trade. This is, if I were day trading, which I do day trade at times. Red Dog's been day trading for his whole, everything. This seems like it could get through this. So what are your thoughts on Poet? Poet's a new name that people like. I got stopped out of it yesterday just because I was trying to reduce things when things were coming in. I would say, if you're long it, it's got to hold 740-ish. Got to give it some room. I like the name, but you can't buy it just because I like the name. It's, what is it, a semiconductor or so? So this is 740. Had a nice breakout. Gave you a move up to about 940. Let it rebuild a little bit. Let it prove that it's going to hold 740 and clear 940. A lot of these new names are working. They are. So I get why you'd be focused on this. What's Poet doing this morning? It is it's up 35 cents. So it's rebuilding and held the 8-day. Not bad. I like it. I hear you on that. So Poet is something I feel like it's a new name. Why not? Someone asked me about BTDR. This was my biggest winner yesterday. A lot of my guys have been all over IREN making a ton of money, CIFR making a ton of money. So I was accumulating the $22 calls in here. And then all of a sudden, boom, they came out with news about what they're doing. I'm not going to get into it. And I did sell a lot of the 22s, and I went out and rolled them up, and I started buying the $30 calls out a month. Just to continue the trade. Sometimes I don't continue the trade. Sometimes I get away from it. ASTS, I got away from it. I made a lot of money this year. This is on the go-to list all year. Played a lot of different ways, a lot of different patterns. And if I would have rolled it up, I would have made a lot more. I made money here, got out, and then thank goodness I got back, remember, here. And then this was my last big money trade. But I was done with it into like the 70s. I missed a move to 99. If I would have just every time it went up, sold some options, came in, rolled them, sold them, rolled them, I would have made a ton more. So I'm going to try and stay with this. Try, and if you're in the shares, what you want to do is you want to make sure it holds 24.15, which is the gap. So let it see if it can hold 24.15. I'd keep this on the radar, and we'll see, if it can continue. With IREN, I was on this in the 25s. And I said, my guy said it can go to 100, and people are like, no, I can't, or 50. Anyway, it went to 72. And now let's see this 8-day. Knowing how to buy the 8-day and a key momentum name could make you rich, or at least give you a good month or quarter. Anyway, so listen, it's been a tricky week. There's been a lot to do. Again, knowing your levels help, having your preparation help, having multiple plans help, feeling good helps. This is the only business in the world where, you're told if you're right or wrong real fast, and it's very easy to get heady. That's why I keep my mind right. That's why I'm up at 4:45. That's why I created Red Dog Mindset that you could subscribe to if you want. In the 630 Club, I go over the X's and O's. In the Alpha Team, I post 40 charts and I trade all day long. But in order to do all that stuff, you need to have the right mindset. And I do a lot of content. I do a lot of execution. Make probably 50 decisions a day. I'm sure you guys make a ton of them. And in order to make the right decision and listen to your gut, you have to think clearly. In order to think clearly, you have to have the right routine and process. So make sure you have it. Listen, you're not having a good quarter if all you're doing is trading Amazon. Amazon's been horrible, underperforming, broke the wedge to the downside. I lost money there, and now it's barely holding the 200-day. This is not where the action is. It's just not. So if you're sitting there trading Amazon, and where you're sitting there and trading even like a Netflix, which is just like sitting here doing a whole lot of nothing, and not trading the names that are moving, that are making higher lows and higher highs, then you're not in the right place. So look at yourself in the mirror, say, hey, it's my fault. I'm not doing my proper prep. I'm not, in the right things. And then don't blame it on the market. Blame it on yourself. Make some adjustments, and then get in rhythm. Rhythm is important for the stock market. If you're out of rhythm, it's hard to make money. And sometimes, some days we're out of rhythm, and some days, you're feeling like you could do no wrong. Just keep yourself even keel. What does Crypto Kane says? I bought some RDW, but the premium was very high. RDW is not acting well, Crypto Kane's. RDW is a laggard. I tried it a few times too. Like, look where it is. It's below the moving averages. It's below the 200-day. That's not a focus. I had it on as a position, and I lost money there. Someone asked me, what about ACHR? It did a little bit of a topping tail here. It's not the end of the world. I've been in it since 10/22. I'd like to see it pack and fill again. What happened was some of the drone names that came out with some news, they sold the news, so this wasn't able to hold here. But I don't think the drone names are done. ACHR looks good still. JOBY, granted, had a red dog reversal here. It probably needs some time. But anyway, Bitcoin has to hold here. barely holding this area. You know, we'll see what that means, or see if it doesn't mean anything. It had a breakout failure. Now it's holding this area. I am accumulating some IBIT calls. I'm doing it. I'm accumulating some IBIT calls a month out, thinking that it's going to have another move. If it doesn't, you know what, I'll lose risk as premium paid. And when it shows me it's acting better, then I'll really get into it. Sometimes you want to put a little feeler on to keep your mind engaged in the situation. And then when it triggers and goes, you've been watching it, you could see it, and then that's when you edge your size. And that's when your go time triggers. All right, wow, it's 6:58. I'm going to get yelled at by management. This is only supposed to be 20 minutes. Anyway, if you love the 6:30 Club, make sure to subscribe above, so this way you're grandfathered in for life. Not for life. Well, I'm probably only going to be doing this for another 10 years. I'm 53 years old. Later, guys.